Terrific. Some more happy, smiley faces on the screen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We're going to be kicking off by hearing about some respective impacts of coronavirus and the pandemic on two very different organisations. Joining us here is Rachel Hyam from BT and Iggy O'Doherty from the Northern Ireland Civil Service. Thank you very much for coming to our virtual stage, guys. Rachel, how's it going today?
Great, lovely and sunny, and all well.
Good, pleased to hear it. And Iggy, a beautiful red background there. Tell us, where are you dialing in from today?
I'm dialing in from Belfast today.
Terrific.
Sunny
Dialing
Belfast.
in. How old am I for saying sunny Belfast? Dialing in. I'm showing my age a little bit there. I hope no one is dialing up over using a good old-fashioned acoustic coupler and modem in that respect these days. Anyway, so accelerating change. Iggy, I want to come to you first of all and talk about the change that's happened over the last few months with you in Northern Ireland. Tell us a bit about the Northern Ireland Civil Service and what it is that you do there.
Yeah, in the Northern Ireland Civil Service, we deliver the whole range of public services for the population of Northern Ireland. We're made up of 9 government departments, and that's from health to transport, finance, agriculture, the whole range. We've got 25,000 staff, and traditionally almost entirely office-based. So our workforce would traditionally be landline telephones, fixed line telephones, fixed desks, a desktop environment, and I lead digital shared services. In my organisation, we provide common ICT infrastructure, hosting, email, network services, digital transformation and security.
Right, okay. We'll come back to you in just a moment and find out how that may or may not have been turned on its head over the last few weeks. But Rachel, I want to come to you next. Many of us, well, perhaps we think at least that we're pretty familiar with what BT does, but from where you sit as MD for IT at BT, what did BC before coronavirus look like, and what's been the impact that the pandemic has had on that version of normality?
Well, pre-COVID, we had 104,000 colleagues. About 70,000 of those were office-based. And that's where we've seen the biggest impact, because over the first 2 weeks of lockdown, we had to put incredible efforts in place to migrate those 70,000 people to being able to work remotely. We had to scale cloud infrastructure to host those remote working capabilities. We had to accelerate the rollout of our Microsoft Teams to allow our teams to effortlessly collaborate. And then in my own organisation, we have 14,000 people in our IT team, and they're from 14 different organisations. So a huge amount of effort in the first 2 days, just establishing communication routes and coordinating plans to have people get out of offices, close down buildings, get equipment out of offices that they needed in their own home sites. And get really clear priorities from within our work stack of what we would continue, what we would stop, and what we would delay. In parallel to that, we were getting lots of new demand from our colleagues in the business who were supporting their customers, either getting additional communication capabilities, or we were changing product and tariffs. For example, we allowed all our BT Sport customers to donate their subscription fee to the NHS, and that required system changes. But actually, after the first week, we've had no dip in productivity. We've been able to continue releasing software and even standing up new agile teams as we were before. It's been remarkable.
I was going to ask that question, and I'm sure the stories about workforces suddenly forced to work from home and then getting kit to them one way or another, kind of emptying out various bits of the office is familiar with a lot of viewers today. But I was curious, and you touched on it there. And Iggy, I think I'll come to you with a question as well about how long it took you, once there was the initial inevitable wobble of, oh my gosh, this wasn't quite what we expected. How are we going to stabilize and start creating an environment in which we can be productive again? About a week is what I picked up from what you were saying, which I think is pretty good.
Yes, it was
Iggy,
very fast. I think the only exception to that was our call centres, where we had to create new secure solutions to allow them to take customer details and process payments in homes. So that took 5 weeks to get everybody from the call centres home, but otherwise it was a week.
Good stuff. So, Iggy, coming back to you, tell me a bit about what changed from the picture you painted just a couple of minutes ago to the situation as it unfolded.
Yeah, well, we have seen, rather like what Rachel just described, we've seen immediate and profound effect on service delivery. We've seen massive changes across all of our government departments. They've really had to rethink their business models in a truly agile way. We've mobilised our workforce in a way that nobody could really have expected. All departments are now looking how they can expedite the use of technology to make staff and customer experience better and easier. It does require leadership in every organisation to embrace and drive the digital agenda. I have to say that we've seen an end to home to office traffic jams and delays. So, and because of that, we're seeing a real increase in productivity. I've seen a reliance on technology, which nobody really would have anticipated before the last couple of months.
Yeah. And in terms of what you've both had to do in your organisations to pivot is the fashionable word these days, I suppose, but to change your behaviours, to change your technology, to enable this new way of working, not just for you, but your teams, your organisation. What have been the big changes that have enabled this rebirth of productivity despite what's been happening? I'll come to you first, Rachel.
I think the two main pivots. One is how frequently we communicate what our priorities are. So that's gone down from sort of monthly or weekly to daily, sometimes even intraday, just so everyone is crystal clear what we need from them. But the biggest pivot has been the shift to how much we talk about well-being and collaboration, and how many activities, sources of help, and communities we've built purposefully to solve problems, break the monotony of being sat in front of our laptops all the time, and have some fun and spontaneity. But we've also had a big focus on using this time to continue to develop our skills. And what's been lovely is we've seen a huge uptick in the level of self-directed learning. People are using their time that would have been spent commuting, upskilling, which is fantastic.
Really interesting stuff. How about you, Iggy, in Northern Ireland? What have been the big changes that you've seen and that you've been able to make to enable people and your setup to continue?
Yeah, we're seeing much more demands for services being delivered online. We're seeing a huge change to the pace of change. The pace of change before this would have been radically different. We manage a common government portal, which is the NI Direct portal. It's the common gateway for the public of Northern Ireland to access information. And we've put COVID-related information to help inform the population of Northern Ireland about developments and to provide assistance to them. And we're frequently seeing 500,000 users accessing that website every week. We've only got a population of 1.8 million. So that will tell you the kind of uptake and the kind of shift, not just from within the organisation, but from the population of Northern Ireland actually going digital and having a real demand for the need to get at reliable and trusted information from a government source. We're also taking the opportunity to drive out paper-based systems. Because we've now moved to a digital-first environment, even electronic pay slips we have just gone live with. Beforehand, we would have printed those out for staff. And so we're actually practicing what we're preaching. We have provided lots of tools and technologies to staff. The immediate effect from most of our public sector was to demand laptops for every member of staff. And of course, laptops on their own are an enabler. It's actually, the challenge is actually sourcing them and getting them ready and making them secure for use, but also to a workforce that aren't all kind of IT literate as we may all be. But there's a huge challenge in terms of the learning and capability, and we deployed many unified communications tools, which some of us had used in the past, but which we're now dependent upon within our business. In the past, we maybe would have seen 20 or 30 video conferencing meetings happening during a week. We're now seeing 500 video conferences happening every single day with over 3,000 staff participating. That's just unheard of, and staff have really adapted.
Sure. I just want to ask about productivity to both of you, but Iggy, I'll ask you first. From what you've been able to see, how has productivity been affected? I mean, obviously there was an initial dip while we were all wondering what on earth was going on, but where we are right now at the end or mid part of the journey, what are productivity levels like compared with what they were before, would you say?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, our productivity has now risen to what it had been before. We did see more than just a dip. In some cases, it was a dip for more than a few weeks because of the way particularly some of our more some of our kind of older IT systems, which would traditionally have not lent themselves to being available and remotely, and I think that those legacy systems gave us problems. So in the past, we would have avoided looking for solutions and yet we would have known that those business problems existed. So what we've done is to look at technology to provide a means to connect through to those systems, and in cases that might be benefit systems for the public, and it may be in and around registration systems and business to support land and property services, for example. Right. And now we've changed, we've enabled those systems to be connected to securely from remote locations, and now we're seeing productivity has risen to a point where it had been before COVID, and in some cases we've increased productivity.
Really interesting to hear. And Rachel, in terms of your, obviously it's very difficult to make broad generalizations about has your productivity risen, but what observations have you made on that thought?
Yeah, I mean, we've restored productivity levels by the end of week 2 across all partner and all internal teams. And what we've actually seen is many teams are now beating that previous productivity level because they are being more strict with themselves, I think, around what meetings they join, what points do they come together to sync on activities. They are throwing overboard a lot of previous activities or meetings that just weren't helping productivity, to be frank. What's been really interesting is we previously didn't think we could mobilize new agile squads and tribes while working fully remotely, and we've absolutely busted that myth too. So it's been a very positive experience for us.
Yes, there has been a lot of expectation resetting. Before we wrap up today, I just want to land on lessons learned. I mean, obviously, a thing has happened. We've had to change direction to join some strings and join some dots that we hadn't expected to join quite so quickly. And we're learning out of that about ways in which workforces can work that maybe we didn't realize before, and ways to create a new platform to enable new types of productivity, I guess. What have been the biggest challenges in getting there, and what measures have you put in place? What lessons have you learned to overcome them? Rachel, first of all, what was the biggest challenges to restoring that productivity and to creating this new platform?
There weren't really any major challenges in getting that productivity reset, to be honest. We were very lucky in that regard. I think one of our biggest learnings has been that what's written in your business continuity plan may not be the actual scenario you face in reality. So you have to be able to flex through strong communication and fast decision making. And we saw that proven out where Some of our partners didn't have quite the number of laptops or remote tokens, or had home connectivity issues when we scaled everybody working from home. So one of our biggest lessons is we need to do countrywide remote working tests as we go forward. It's not something we had in our pandemic planning or testing. And I think that the final huge learning we've had is that as leaders, we have to shift to communicating in a far more personal way, revealing the things that we are personally finding difficult and how we're coping with that, showing empathy and curiosity, and really listening to our people's answers to solve for them quickly.
Sure. Iggy, in terms of the main challenges for you and the main lessons that that you would like to share with our viewers today.
Yeah, I guess the kind of two biggest challenges which I've seen was in and around the fact that a lot of the technology actually existed, but it wasn't really being exploited. So I think that was a challenge which required kind of really rapid learning on everybody's part. But similarly, in terms of technology, our internet bandwidth was saturated to a point of about 98% in the first few weeks. So we had to rapidly extend that internet bandwidth. In fact, we increased our internet pipes 5-fold. Such was the demand, and we have a high performing network, which is kind of the backbone for doing our business. In terms of lessons, I think the traditional model of office-based workforce is so last century. I think we're now seeing that businesses can operate in a completely different environment. I would echo the point about business continuity planning. Often it had been a paper-based exercise, an annual exercise, but business continuity planning on a scale that we're now looking at, I think we need to relook. And I think the other lesson is about enabling transformation. We can enable transformation more rapidly because we've done it.
Yeah. Listen, I'm afraid we are out of time for now, Rachel and Iggy, but thank you so much indeed for joining us here today and sharing your stories from the coalface, and really fascinating to understand about your views on productivity within your organizations. And again, if anyone watching right now would like to leave some comments on how they see productivity has changed, improved or declined maybe within their own organizations, then please leave those in the chat. But thank you very much indeed, Rachel and Iggy. Hope to speak to you again very soon.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.